Hey, I'm Cameron.
And I'm Jordan. Let's crash the mode.
Alright, today we're going to be talking about video games.
With the recent information released on the new Xbox, also known as Xbox One, and then further information released about PS4 as a result, we thought it was high time we talked about video games and a bit about the history of that, where it is now and where it's going.
So, the evolution of video games.
Essentially, yeah.
Especially with E3 coming up and
the
biggest...
I want to go there someday.
Yeah.
It should be cool. So, there's a lot of information floating around, a lot of craziness, and we will get to that. So, let's start off with a little bit about the history. I know a lot of people out there might think that, video games started out in the 70s. But, you can see early works with that as far back as 1947, growing up with, electrical computers. And then growing little by little, but kind of, behind the scenes a lot of times. And I mean, some information was hard to come by because a lot of people were like students using a lot of equipment they shouldn't be using in creating games. And more interest grew as time went on. Time you got to the 70s, they thought it'd be a good idea to then go to, consoles, arcades, and all that stuff. And then it boomed. It crashed a couple times over the years, especially during the 80s. And things just kept on getting bigger and changing and some more.
Thank you, Professor.
Ha ha ha. But, yeah, things have stepped up a lot from, using cathode ray tubes to, potentially having supercomputers.
Cathode ray tube supercomputers.
I'm saying going from that to that.
Okay, I was like, what?
I wasn't saying there's like a supercomputer with cathode ray tubes. That'd be interesting. I'm not sure how that would work. But I'm saying the evolution has been interesting. And I know we grew up in an age where video games were actually, they weren't dying down. They were getting better. They were getting bigger. They're getting different. I know I started off with Sonic the Hedgehog and kind of went from there and became insane. And over the years, formats change, space that you could put in changed, ways to record music, all have changed. And one thing hasn't changed: the money. It is still all about that money. I mean, I want to bitch and complain about some things now and with that, but truth be told, it's always been about that. Like, I mean, there's all these expansions that are going on these days, add-ons, but don't see how that's really that different from, putting a coin into the arcade machine again and again. But
my philosophy is, a game that looks well, you remember for a year. A game that plays well, you remember forever.
I actually like that. I do.
I probably stole that from somebody. I feel like I stole that from somebody.
Probably, but you're taking it as your own now, so fuck it. Fuck them. You got that. But no, like, I see your point. Because a lot of things have changed. And as far as graphics is concerned, I do feel that they have evolved to a point where there is no excuse for you to have shitty graphics in a game these days. So you get little points from me for having a game that has amazing graphics, unless it really does stand out from the others.
Yeah, we're getting to the to the edge of photorealism. We're getting to the asymptote of how well you can. We're approaching the limits of what we can do, and I'm not sure where we're going to go from here, but.
It's going to be difficult. It's going to be more about the gameplay, innovation, peripherals to your gaming consoles.
I think we're starting to see that now. But
yeah, we are. We really are. It's only going to get worse or better depending on how you look at it. I don't know. I personally think worse in that regards, like going further with graphics. But I mean, it should be interesting. But these peripherals aren't going to be cheap. They aren't cheap now. But you see a lot of weird stuff over the years. Simple as like these basic like dots on the screen or text-based games, to these just really crazy HD games and all that. And seriously, with the HD games, I'm kind of annoyed because with this generation, they kind of expect you to have an HD TV, and it's like they make some text smaller here, and it's like there's no reason to do that.
Well, they're pretty cheap, so
cheap if you got money like that. Come on. I don't. Right. Someday, though. No, I mean, actually, I could afford one, but I'd rather not invest in that.
Okay.
But I see your point, okay? I see your point. It'd just be nice if they didn't cater that. But anyway, things have changed a lot, and they keep on changing. And you see some games still survive throughout the years, and then some companies still survive throughout the years. Like, I mean, and then some, they're still around, but they've changed. Like, one of the companies that have been around, and they'll still be around forever. I mean, they're probably going to outlive all those other companies. Nintendo, they've been around longer than I've been around.
Well, they didn't. They originally didn't start off not making video games.
True.
They started off making, what is it, trading cards?
They did. Yeah, well, playing cards.
Playing cards.
They started doing playing cards and other games, but as far as games, like video games, they've still been making video games since before I was born.
Yeah.
As far as like 84. It's like insane. And then you have Sega's actually been around pretty damn long too, almost as long as Nintendo, if not the same year. I don't know, it's been a while since I looked into that. But they've changed completely. They no longer do the hardware. They just do software now.
Hey, I still play my Dreamcast, so
yeah, that Dreamcast that neither one of us ever had. But you know, there are people that still play it, and I do wish that did get a chance. I mean, it pioneered some things, but you know, even though that was the first one that offered extensive online play, apparently online play is nothing new. That's been around too for a long time, even before it got really, really big with the internet. You know what I mean? Like there are ways to do it.
Yeah,
and it's crazy. Because we evolved in so many ways, and we think that so many of these things are new, but it's like I say, nothing new under the sun. It's just like the form has changed, and some things have evolved, and all that good stuff. But,
well, someone invented a digital camera in the 70s, so I mean...
Wow. That is impressive. And now, it comes to light much later. But yeah, a lot of these things are crazy.
It wasn't that good, but still.
Still, it's been there.
A lot of stuff we're seeing now...
Hell, yeah.
It's just because it takes so long for something to get to the concept stage, from this like prototype to, or maybe even in someone's garage or something, to like actually making it into a full-fledged consumer product. Because it needs to go through so many iterations, and so that every time you use it, it works. It's just the engineering of it, and then there's also the economics of it. Maybe like transistors weren't as cheap, or had as much power, or something, or had as much processors or anything. But eventually, like time, Moore's law, a bunch of other stuff happens that we're getting it now.
Yeah, and I mean it's impressive because, like, even with computers themselves, before there were electrical computers, the type of computers that we know, the type of computers that we grew up on, they were analog computers.
It's probably better to say digital.
Well, I feel like if we say digital, most people will think of the electrical computers. Oh, you're talking about? Never mind. I got what you just said.
Okay, analog computers, a lot of them run on electricity.
Granted, okay.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of analog stuff they did back for aircraft research. All old analog computers they used for Air Force research and that kind of thing, and actually on like bombers and stuff during World War II and stuff. Even as far back then, in submarines and all kinds of stuff.
Noted.
And the digital computers started off a lot of it in the military. Britain did a lot of research on that kind of stuff, and you really couldn't take advantage of the digital concept until the transistor came along.
Revolutionized things, and there's no turning back now.
And then like the way we figured out like there's a guy Moore who's like the head of IBM. He's like, hey, I noticed that the number of transistors and stuff, blah blah blah, doubles every 18 months or something. And he only projected this out for like not that far ahead, maybe like 10, 20 years or something. But it's been maybe for 5 years or something. But it's been going on for a while. And a lot of people have applied, others have applied like Moore's law to like other things like LCD screens and different stuff like definitions and stuff. So
fascinating.
Yeah.
Video games, they grew up with computers, and like we were talking about, there's nothing new under the sun with that. So we talked a little bit about the background there. I mean, I want to talk about like some stuff in our day, though. Like maybe some of the consoles we grew up on, and some of the video game characters that we grew up on, and where we're at now. Because like for a while when video games became more mainstream, you had a lot of arcade stuff, and then a lot of console stuff, and over the years, arcade games kind of fizzled out, just like the very, very specialty stuff.
Yeah, it's become like. Have you ever seen the documentary? Like it was like one on Donkey Kong and.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was kind of that culture that died out, and now it's only like this niche thing that was competitive or just for fun.
Yeah, but I do gotta say, like, in relation to some of the stuff that we'll be talking about later, Sonic the Hedgehog, one of the characters, grew up on my first video game. There's actually an arcade game where you're running on a treadmill, like, playing as Sonic to race other characters. I don't know how safe that is, but it sounds kind of, like, awesome. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I'd like to play that game, but it's like stuff like that you'll see in arcades. I mean, they're somehow still surviving.
Yeah, Sega Genesis, PlayStation.
Yeah.
Yeah, we grew up with Sega Genesis, PlayStation, Nintendo 64. I think
Even Super Nintendo, but that you might not remember that so much.
Yeah. I mean, the game I think that probably defined gaming for a while. I think the one where like Call of Duty's kind of taken after is GoldenEye.
Oh man, I remember that from way back in the day.
Everyone played GoldenEye.
It was pretty good. I mean, we had some cousins, and like we played GoldenEye when we go over there. And hey, you know what? The people that made GoldenEye made Time Splitters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it shows. It definitely shows, and that's a great series too. But so back when we were playing, like video games, they were mainstream. They were pretty big. You would find a lot of kids that had them, but it still wasn't to the point where it is now.
Yeah, well, now they make more money than movies and music combined. The video game industry is that big.
Yeah.
Bigger than movies and music combined. And movies and music, I think movies have probably the biggest thing in our culture.
Yeah.
And so they take up a big spot in our mind. So we think money, money, money. But video games,
Counseling is getting more insane, and with people trying to, at least in this last generation, people trying to appeal, like video game developers and things like that, trying to appeal more to casual gamers. It's only increased.
Well, it's kind of stagnated recently.
Well, that's why I said the last generation, because they're trying to get back more to a hardcore gamer base, trying to appeal to that. But again, we'll get to that too. But I feel like I'm not going to talk too much about like some of the characters that we grew up. Just a few. I mean, you got characters like Sonic, like Mario, like Solid Snake. Characters that define the genres and things like that. They'll be sticking around forever, for better or for worse. And well, maybe not Solid Snake per se, because that's a whole other thing together. But Metal Gear Solid characters in there, they tend to stick around.
Well, some of them have evolved, like Crash Bandicoot. We haven't seen a game with him anymore.
No, we haven't. But there's other characters though.
Spyro lasted for a while. I think he became big for a little bit because he had like those toys.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Yeah, and then I think Ratchet and Clank is still going on, but I stopped caring after PS2. Oh my god! Ugh. Why?
I feel like this movie should have came out a while ago if they were going to do it. But...
Yeah, and that's another thing, now that you mention it. I mean, video games are already ridiculously big, and then you have all these movie tie-ins. You have video games that are based on movies. You have movies that are based on video games. They're feeding off each other. It's getting insane.
Well,
I mean, that's been around for a while, though, like Mortal Kombat and stuff like that.
Yeah. I don't think there's been a really big... Has there been a really big video game or movie based on a video game?
No.
Like, I don't...
Because it's just a shameless, cash in, They don't put any effort in that. They just know it's going to sell some. They don't have to do great. They just know it's going to sell. And it's the same with, like, video games that are based on movies. They know it's going to sell. Just because it has that name. Just because it has that tie-in. They don't have to make it great.
Yeah.
So it ends up not being major. It ends up not sticking out. But, so, back then, right, we had, like, a little war in our day. Like, I mean, now what we didn't know, we had no idea of knowing back then, because, we were kids. What the hell did we know about video games? What was going on in the outside world? Well, there was a lot of systems coming and going,
Well, the big thing, like, the way people kept up when stuff was on magazines. A lot of those have gone by the wayside now.
Yep, just like the systems that were around that time, too.
A couple have transitioned into websites, but, yeah.
I mean, because you had, like, a bunch of different systems. Like, you had some SNK systems, like, Commodore stuff, and all this other crazy thing. There's a bunch of different consoles around, like, the 90s. I mean, well, there has been since consoles have come out, but, like, back then, it was crazy. Like, if you look into it, you're like, goddamn. But a lot of them end up dying. And around, like, the time we grew up on video games, you didn't get any bigger than Sega or Nintendo. They were just top dog until... Like, that generation died down, and ended up, instead of cartridges, we exchanged cartridges for CD when Sony came along.
Yeah, PlayStation.
And man, they've been getting power ever since. But
Yeah.
So I mean, Sega ended up eventually, catching up, but ended up, unfortunately, as soon as it caught up, just dying off because Sony gained more power. The rival of the PS2 kind of killed, the speed that Dreamcast had been building.
Well, do you remember how popular the PlayStation 2 was back then?
Hell yeah.
I think there were some accusations that they purposely created a shortage to increase the popularity.
Mm-hmm.
And
because I remember it actually came out in 2000, but you heard a lot more about it in 2001 because, they ran out. They knew what they were doing. They're not stupid, And it's like turn of the century, you had like big names, like I said, that Sega kind of wind down, but Nintendo is still in the running. I mean, and I think that's when you had the big three that have been just ruling for the last couple generations.
Well, I'm going to argue that now there's a big four.
I'm curious.
Valve.
You
Valve.
count that?
What?
Wait, okay. Now I'm going to let you talk about what you're going to talk about because I'm not sure if we're talking about the same thing.
Valve, who created Steam.
Okay, then yes, we're talking about that.
PC gaming.
Okay.
PC gaming has become big, and Valve is the leader in. They created Steam, the online store. They're the leader in selling online games, and you can't talk about gaming without talking about Valve. Now they created Half-Life and those other games, but in terms of like gaming influence, the big thing is Steam. And if you're a PC gamer, you're buying your game online through Steam.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that's pretty damn good. A lot of people I know use it. And I know, what did they do? They did like Half-Life, they did Team Fortress.
Yeah, those are big games.
Things like that. There's a couple of other big ones. Oh, Portal. They did
Portal. And they actually have an interesting company culture where it's like, I read an article where it's like, they don't have like team leaders or something. It's just like, if you have a project you're interested in, you just pick a group of, like, people just gravitate to where they're interested in and work on it.
Interesting.
And it's like, there's no real big hierarchy.
Well, it's actually pretty smart when you think about it. People are likely to do better when they're interested in the material, and they're getting the freedom to go there.
Yeah, as long as you hire talented people, they'll work, even if there isn't.
But and then you look good as a result, because, you're letting them do their thing. What you're doing is not getting in their way, and it's a good move.
But Steam's the big thing, I think, because downloading digitally is the next big thing, and they have the biggest head start up.
Okay, yeah. When we get to that, it'll be a completely different thing. Yeah, right now, it's kind of divided. Like, it's kind of like this. The way I view it is, there's a console war, and then there's a gaming war as a whole.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the console war, of course, there's like the three big ones, and then like the gaming, there's PC versus console.
Well, I think PC it should be included as just general console.
Oh.
In the console war. I mean, like, I guess it really doesn't matter.
I feel like it's a different thing, but...
Okay, yeah.
And I see your point. Like, it's picking up speed, and the way things are going, like, that sort of stuff is going to only get more relevant, especially as consoles get more, like, computers. I mean, they are computers, but, I mean specialized
more
computers,
general purpose.
But more generalized computers. It's going to be more about, like, what PC is like bringing to the table, and there's so many people that do have a head start, and you're right. Valve is getting pretty powerful, and Steam is kind of like hard to pass up some things on there. They got amazing deals. But yeah. So
the big three.
Yeah, let's talk about
Nintendo,
the big three: Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony.
Yeah. So they happened during the first Xbox, PlayStation 2, and GameCube.
Yeah, because Sony had been making a name for itself as soon as it came out with the PS1. Back then the PlayStation, but renamed later as the PS1. Nintendo was still kicking around, and Sega kind of went off, like we said. And so when, 2000 hit or so, things were a lot different than they would be. You had those three big ones, and they stuck out. And for me, because we can talk about, who was winning the war there. And then we can also talk about how PC was doing at the same time. PC games, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So as far as, the consoles specifically, if you, count them as not as generalized, just very, very specific for gaming, I feel like they each brought something different to the table, but I feel like if there is a straight up loser, it's probably GameCube for that one. And if there is a straight up winner, it's probably PS2.
Yeah, it's definitely PS2.
Yeah, I mean, because PS2, they had the graphics, they had the gameplay, they had the variety in games. In Xbox, I feel like people were just learning to give it a chance, and a lot of people dived in because of Halo and stuff like that, and they were giving it more of a chance, and they started getting more games that went on. But PS2, they already had the reputation of PS1.
Yeah, didn't Xbox originally have the exclusive on Knights of the Republic and some other stuff?
And they did, and weirdly enough, even though Sony had for that last generation, like on PS1 and stuff like that, I feel like there was a lot of good RPGs that came out on PS1. Now, I do like a good RPG when I come across one, but it's not my favorite genre. It's not my least favorite either, It's kind of like, oh, this game happens to be an RPG. That's fine. As long as it's good, it's good. But if you had to go to a particular company, you turn to Sony. And I found like with the Xbox, they actually had some really good RPGs. And I mean like actual like RPGs where your decision does affect how the game turns out.
Yeah, they had quality stuff.
They did. And I feel like that actually brought in a lot of gamers for that too, because back then, I don't feel like it was as casual as it is now. When you had a hardcore gamer, I'm not gonna lie, I felt like a lot of them were into RPGs too, so it helped that Xbox had that. And it started to get a name for itself.
Well, interestingly enough, like, despite like having some decent RPGs, they're all Western RPGs.
And they were.
And so they never really... Microsoft's never been able to crack the Japanese market.
They did not, whereas Sony had that shit on lock.
Well, Nintendo.
Nintendo too. Yeah, Nintendo probably more than them. But
especially on the portable.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna rephrase what I said more like, it's like PS2 had no problem having that. It's just like PS2, they had variety all over the place. They had Western games, they had Eastern games, they had any type of game you can imagine back then. And then let's get to Nintendo for that one. Now, Nintendo, I feel like it kind of coasted through that one. GameCube was just a weird little thing. The discs were small, it had no online capability.
I despise the controller. The
controller is shit.
I despise the controller.
I'm glad you said it, because if you didn't, I was going to. It was horrible, it was clunky, no one really enjoyed it. The only reason I actually have a GameCube is because I wanted Metal Gear Solid the Twin Snakes, which was pretty decent, a remake of the original. But anyway, for that generation, I actually did have the three major ones. I had PS2 and Xbox and GameCube, and PS2 I had the most games for, followed by Xbox and then GameCube. And I feel like with GameCube, they had a lot of Nintendo followers with them, and they did have some innovative games here and there, but they were too child-friendly back then. They had the occasional mature game, sure, but it was all like, it's family-friendly, because, that's what they're going for. That's Nintendo for you.
Okay, so... I didn't really play the GameCube, to be honest.
I don't think that many people did. Just a cage of people they really liked it when they did.
Well, Nintendo, there's always the Nintendo characters. I've never been like a big fan of those, and like you played every single game. And there's certain people that really love those games.
They do. I mean, if you know Game & Watch and you know the detailed history of that, and you're so excited about that, then yeah, you may be.
I think it's kind of like Apple, where it's like, where you're in the Mac universe and you just like the Mac universe, that's fine for you, and so you want to stick with it.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. But it's just like, but if you want to appeal to more gamers out there, or more people in general, that might not have been the way to go. And I think that is something that they learned in the next generation. And I think we'll get to who won that one. So you have anything to say about that generation? Because it's gotten really big since that generation, I feel.
I think PlayStation 2 was the clear winner.
I
think they only stopped selling it. They stopped making them this year.
They did. It just got discontinued this year.
It was a major success. Probably one of Sony's more successful products. Because I know they've screwed up a lot of their other stuff, and their CEOs have been complete crap.
Mm-hmm.
But the PS2, I think, was a bright spot.
Clear winner.
Xbox, they managed a company that was, they made operating systems and different stuff, but they managed to make a nice piece of hardware, decent piece of hardware, and crack open an industry that's really hard to get into. But if you were going to bet on anyone to crack it, you would have to bet on Microsoft, just because they had so much cash.
Yeah, they just throw cash at it.
I think if Apple wanted to make a console, they could, because they have $100 billion in the bank. If they wanted to just spend much money as they want to catch up, they could.
Yeah, but I think it also ended up being very specifically Nintendo, you know? But you're right, they definitely could. They have enough money to throw around, just toss around until they get it right. And in this day and age, it can't be difficult.
Well, yeah, that's what Microsoft basically did.
Yeah. And so I feel like that generation was a turning point. Video games got really popular there. And what, like the internet coming out, that made things even more popular. And then you got video game shows coming out. I mean, things just got big.
X-Play,
yeah,
all this.
They got bigger, they got better. It was insane.
I think it was definitely the high point.
Yeah, and I feel like the hardcore console, I feel like they definitely trounced PC there a bit back then. I mean, a lot of people, they grew up with some PC games, sure, and I feel like they definitely survived, and they were big enough to make it into the next generation and then get some good dominance. But I feel like back then, I think the consoles won out.
Well, also back then, you have to remember, like, if you wanted to, like high-end PC games, if you want to play graphics, you had to
pricey.
You had to buy a pricey like gaming rig, or you had to make it yourself.
Yeah,
and so that's the average person doesn't feel like doing that.
And I know some people that did, and this shit was pricey, like Alienware. Like
I hate Alienware.
They would like build some crazy computers with that. And they would have to have like all these fans and all this stuff, and it's just like it's a bit much.
If I had done it, I would just done it myself. But
yeah, then that generation lasted a while, and it only came a matter of time before we can actually do better stuff. And that generation got kicked off with the Wii, which I think more or less won that one.
Well, it was a surprise hit. I don't think no one, not even Nintendo, saw it coming.
No.
I think they happened to catch a wave of casual interest in gaming. When did the Wii come out? Exact year?
2006.
Yeah, they happened to catch, like, the idea of like motion control. It's been put out there before, but the ease of use of the Wii, I think, was unlike anything before. And just the ease and accuracy. It wasn't the best piece of hardware, but it was cheap and it was decent for what it set out to do.
Yeah, and I mean, at least they did make it cheap to compensate for that. But compared to the PS3 and Xbox 360, it paled in comparison from a technological standpoint.
Well, I think gaming, a lot of it became like cinematic and long stories and stuff, and the Wii was just basics.
Yeah, you picked up and you just went with it.
Yeah, you just played the game.
And I think you're right about that wave of casual gaming. I think that is because video games were getting so big. People were getting more interested to try it, but some people, they were like kind of probably off-put by the hardcore gaming, you know?
Yeah.
And they were like, I don't want to step into the world just quite yet, I'm not ready. And then we was that accessible system. And it's like, you didn't need to be a gamer to actually use it. And that was a big thing. You had things like Wii Fit and other like silly stuff that you could just pick up, you could do. It had a lot of purposes, and I feel like that helped the Wii skyrocket. And also, it was the first one to come out of those three. And it's like the cheap price helped. And I really do feel like, as a result, it won. I don't know how closely, but I feel like it won. And then I feel like it was Xbox 360 followed by the PS3, unfortunately, making it a complete turnaround.
Well, you know, they say, like, if you can't be smarter or better, be first.
It turned out well. They had a nice head start.
Well, it has to be, I think, if you're ranking it, Wii, Xbox 360, so PS3.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I'm annoyed by that.
I
know it's not just because, I'm a super big fan of Sony. I'm pissed about how Sony handled the whole PS3 launch. Not only did they have a shitty launch, like there was not that many titles that were interesting that came out when it came out.
Price.
And the price was ridiculous. They changed a lot of things. Like, I mean, when they were talking about the new controllers and all these new things, they ended up changing it. And since the Wii came out first, it made it seem like they were copying off of them.
Yeah, well, they straight up lied about some features.
They
in
did.
the E3 conference.
And that's annoying. And, here's the major thing that I know a lot of people didn't like, and I still don't like, is this. If you got that first wave of PS3s and all that stuff, the backwards compatibility. PS2. That was another big thing about PS2. Okay, so Xbox was breaking into that market back then, like when PS2 did. It obviously didn't have any games on a system that it had before because there was no system. And then Nintendo They had switched from, cartridges to CDs, and they had these small CDs, and that wasn't backwards compatible. But PS2, they were still on, a system that they could do some nice stuff with. It could play CDs and DVDs, allowing you to play your PS1 games as well as your PS2 games, allowing you to have all that on one system. It was a good move. And then PS3, it was a giant fuck you. It was clear at that point that Sony, they weren't really caring about the customers. And on top of that, they were the last to launch. And they just kind of wanted the launch to get into it. And it's like, but if you have a poor launch, it's going to look bad. Now, admittedly, I think they definitely made it much closer by, now.
Yeah, by the end. It was
by the very end. And I think that's good. And they finally had some really nice games out and a lot of cool features later on. But the launch was just horrendous. And I suffered for it. Yeah. And I feel like that is something that they're trying to address with the next generation. But yeah, so it's crazy how these things work, because you have that one generation where it's like Sony was winning, followed by Microsoft, and then followed by Nintendo, and then bam, you flip it around in the next generation, you have Nintendo winning, followed by Microsoft, followed by Sony. So Microsoft was staying afloat this whole time, doing pretty well, taking second place. But can we say that about the next generation?
Well, before we get to the next generation,
yes, let's talk about some more.
There's some stuff I want to talk about first.
All right, let's go for it.
Number one, online became big.
Oh yeah,
and the big difference is you have the PlayStation Network and the Xbox Live.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Xbox Live has some good features. You got the voice stuff and headset and stuff you can use, which is great for certain games.
Yeah, like especially the first-person shooters, things like that, and those are pretty big.
But the one thing that pisses me off about it is, you're paying for it.
Yeah, you are.
And then, you can't even access your stuff, and like Netflix and everything, unless you pay them money. And it's like, I'm paying Netflix and I'm paying you.
Yep.
The other thing I want to talk about is, Netflix, and by the idea that this generation introduced the idea of your console is an entertainment system. And that's going to play into the next generation. But,
oh, no doubt.
So, you watch Netflix on your things, you can watch Hulu, and the idea that of your console as an entertainment system is being the center around which your living room revolves came to the fruition in this generation. The idea that we need to focus on this for the next generation started with this generation. And I guess the third thing is the idea of motion and sensing peripherals in cameras and everything. And the big one, the Wii kind of had their the motion sensor, yeah, but that's pretty basic. And then you had the Kinect, which was a jump up in sensing. And I actually like the Kinect. I like the Kinect separately. Separately from the Xbox completely.
Fair enough.
Is it just from an engineering perspective? A lot of people use it for robotics and stuff. It's a very cheap sensor. They use it for quadcopters to map a room or something, so it can move around autonomously. It's a really neat sensor. It kind of sucks for games. It's horrible for games.
But for anything else, it's nice.
And I mean, I could see myself wanting a Kinect just hooked up to my computer in my living room so I can scroll and stuff just separately from the Xbox.
Fair enough.
So the whole idea of peripherals and stuff, that's going to play in the next generation as well.
Yeah, it is. I don't want to address some of those things that you mentioned. Well, for one, with the whole online being a big deal, I don't give a fuck about online gaming, I won't lie. I don't. I'm more of a single player kind of experience.
You're a lone wolf.
Yeah. Pretty much. Also, just playing with people online, if they're not your friends, God, they're assholes. Good grief. But huh?
Oh, I have something else I want to talk about.
Oh, okay, sure. But as far as the Xbox Live thing, yeah, that is irritating. That's why I never bothered to have that for my original Xbox. And if I had a 360, no, I wouldn't bother. But for PS3, I think they actually did do a very good thing continuing their it's a free online service. As long as you already are having an online service, you don't have to pay any additional fee. And I think that's good. Because, who wants to pay additional money? But, as far as the console being entertainment systems, I think that is good. I mean, but the focus on it, I don't care for so much. It's nice to have that ability to watch things here and there. And I think it did make all the difference with, Wi-Fi becoming so popular. It made a lot of things easier. And I think that's good. But yeah, again, I don't like the focus part. As far as a motion sensor, they could be good. They could be fun here and there. But I admit I'm so used to other ways. I don't even think about doing those sometimes. And then also, I feel like maybe it'll change in the future. But with some of those games, a lot of care isn't necessarily thrown into them. You know?
Yeah.
And then sometimes that's just like people don't know how to handle the technology just quite yet. Well, the other part is people just like, oh, it's on here. It's already a gimmick. Why should I try? But what was the other thing that you were going to talk about?
Okay, the rise of indie gaming. The rise of indie games and indie developers. Well, right now there are a bunch of people that can, work on it for like a year or something in their basement on their computer and program and draw a game and release it on Xbox or PlayStation now. And this has been huge. People have made lots of money off of this. And so there's a bunch of indie games, and that's a big growing market. And that started on this generation. Because now you have like high internet speeds and downloads and stuff are easy.
Very useful.
And so that's a big thing. And like something like Minecraft. Yeah, I mean like that's the indie game of the century where I guess it's not, I guess you can't really consider indie game anymore. Where it's made millions and millions and millions of dollars, and people are even making tons of money just from playthroughs on YouTube.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So
absolutely crazy.
So I think we've seen the rise of the indie game, and that were games that are more about gameplay, and like they can have blocky graphics like Minecraft, but people don't care just because they're fun to play.
Yeah,
and so we're getting back that kind of like, oh, you know what, graphics aren't everything, and maybe it's better just to play a fun game.
Yeah. I wanted to address that. First, I want to address Minecraft just very, very briefly. I don't get why people like to do that, but I will say this about like a lot of independent like game developers and all that stuff. I'm sure some games are fun and then some games aren't, much like, regular games in the industry. Yeah. But I think it's an amazing thing that, they could get that out there for better or for worse. It's like, hey, if those big name developers, they could do games. It's nice that someone else could go out there and make a name for themselves to get a good game. And as far as the bad games are concerned, it's like, well, if the big developers can do that and make money off it, why the fuck not? Let it benefit them at least if they're gonna have a shitty game. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of Minecraft per se. But I was gonna say something else about that sort of stuff, but I forget.
Oh yeah, I forgot. And we also had the rise of tablet and phone gaming during this generation.
Yeah, that's true.
Which we see influences the next generation as well.
Yeah. And you know what else we saw this generation? And we're going to definitely talk about it for the next generation. There seems to be this big war brewing between used games and, big publishers and developers and all that. And it's getting bad. And you know who's going to suffer for it? The consumer, the gamers. It's totally not about us in the next generation, but
the whole industry as a whole might suffer.
Oh yeah, there's gonna be some backlash like crazy, but we're gonna get to that. But it started in this generation. I know there are definitely some things that I don't like.
Don't buy. I don't know if GameFly is a public company, but don't buy.
Yeah,
don't buy stock in them.
No, it's gonna change real quick. But one of the things that I really, really do not like, I cannot express it enough, is the idea of game locking. And that is not something that's new. That is something that happened this generation. Having experienced it firsthand, it irritates me. I'll give you an example. You've heard it, but I'll say it again. It was the Bayonetta thing that really got to me. I put a lot of time into that game, and it just said stop, and I didn't realize why it stopped. I thought maybe it was the disc, but even though I hadn't really had a bad experience with GameSpot, GameStop. Yeah, I know. I sometimes mix that up, but and I know I worked at GameStop once upon a time. But yeah. So with GameStop, I hadn't really had a bad experience with the CD, but I went back. They were very understanding, and I got a new disc. It still wasn't working. I was really pissed off. So after looking into it, right, I found out about it was one of the games that was game locked out of about 123, and this is back last year or the year before. And they already had a lot of games that were game locked, and that was just 123 that I knew of. And so what I realized was I'd accidentally got logged out of my account, which meant I couldn't play the game that I owned and purchased.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, it kind of annoys me. Now, see, with that, at least I didn't have to pay an additional fee. But the concept is annoying, and there's stuff we'll talk about later where fees are going to be involved.
Well, there was that whole disaster with SimCity where EA had you had to be constantly online and going through their servers and stuff, and they claimed it was because your computer didn't have enough processing power to do it or some bullshit. But yeah, it was basically an always online thing to keep people from pirating, and a lot of people and their servers went down constantly, despite them being aware that all these people were going to be playing their game. They still screwed it up.
Of course. And that sort of stuff is irritating. And it's like, from their point of view, I definitely get it. Piracy is a serious thing. But at that same time, people are going to fucking do it anyway. And they will find ways around it. Why screw over the rest of the people who are paying for your product? Just because you want to get a little greedy with that. And I get it that, you do want to protect your product. You do want to get all the money that you deserve and all that stuff. But again, people are going to pirate. You do something, they're going to get better. And it's going to screw over us because they're not going to stop. It's like, so you have that chance to at least make it better for us, and you're making it worse. You're making it very clear. You don't give a damn about us or, the games that are coming out. It is about the money. It's always been about the money, clearly, but it's like, you have to be so obvious about it. But,
yeah, so, do you want to move on to the next generation?
yeah, because, this generation was pretty interesting, and I've gotten to play a lot of games from it and all that. And, I did know one thing that I was going to mention earlier that I'd forgotten. You were talking about, the whole looks versus gameplay and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Recently I've been playing, Final Fantasy 13.
Yeah.
It's not too bad. I actually enjoy it for the most part, although some parts do lag. But it reminded me. So, Final Fantasy 6, nowhere near on par graphics-wise. I mean, It came out in 94, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Almost 20 years ago. Well, actually, damn, the original 13 came out 2009. So, 15 years apart, right?
Yeah.
And I gotta say, Final Fantasy VI is one of the best Final Fantasy games I've played. Maybe, on par with 7, or maybe even better. And just a generally fun game overall. The gameplay is pretty solid, the story was pretty amazing, and it actually had a pretty effective villain. I don't know if someone's gonna, I don't want to spoil too much, but whatever. If you're listening to this, you understand it's a risk. But, the villain actually, destroyed the world, became a god, exactly what he set out to do. He eventually got defeated by the heroes, but he actually did what he set out to do before. And then you do have games like 13 where, like I said, I do like it, but I don't know if it's on par with that. It's hard to beat that. That was a game that came out in the 90s, and the graphics weren't, great. And then you have games like Pokemon where, they're still, going to this day. And yeah, graphics have gotten better here and there, but it's you can have fun playing that, and you don't care about the graphics. You don't care what's going on with that. And I think that's interesting. And for the next generation, we still live in that world where graphics that are so important to a lot of people and all that stuff. It's it will come a point where it's going to be harder to get better than some of the graphics you've already gotten. And we're already really reaching that point right now. And I know one thing, I don't know. Okay, so the Fox engine, right? Was made by, Konami and all that. And Kojima's team and all that. They are doing Metal Gear Solid 5 for PS3 as well as PS4, I think. And I don't know about the other systems, but either way, it uses the Fox engine. And I know you've seen pictures.
Yeah.
And that is insane. I know there was one picture where it's it's hard to distinguish a picture generated by the Fox engine versus a real picture. I had to really get in there to see the difference.
Well, yes, I really don't like those because they're
You don't?
Because they're very set up and.
Well, yeah, there's that.
I feel like you can do that with a lot. I feel like there was pictures like that in the last generation where they're oh, it looks, you can't distinguish, and they were very set up.
Yeah, but I'm more inclined to believe that than the stuff back then, the way it's been going. Some of the games
that's what they count on you saying every time, Jordan.
Do they? But you know what I mean. Because you've seen some of the games.
It's different this time. Yeah, sure they hit me, but still, he's changed.
No, it's not like that. And you know it.
I get the comedic effect there, but I mean, seriously though.
I get the comedic.
Wait a minute. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Like, with this generation that we have out now, the graphics are already getting insane. So I'm not inclined to believe that it won't be that bad. Like, when it comes out later, I'm not saying it'll be the most perfect thing, but I'm just saying, given how technology changes, I'm more inclined to believe that picture than say another picture. I'm not saying that would be what they actually show.
Well, I think they understand better the importance of a GPU process GPUs and stuff like that. But
yeah. So let's talk about that next generation.
Um,
Let's get out where it started. It actually started with the Wii U.
well, there's some debate whether it's actually next generation.
Well, obviously,
We'll include this next generation.
Yeah, we will, because you had the Wii before. But I mean, because if you're going to debate that, you could argue about the Wii as well.
All right.
Yeah.
So there's the Wii U. The big thing was it has processing power that's comparable or above the Xbox 360 and the PS3. It's got the tablet, the weird tablet controller.
Yeah.
Which I kind of like the idea of.
I'm different. We're going.
So I like the idea that you can play in bed. You can keep playing your game in bed, and turn off the TV or do something like that, or you can have the TV playing and playing your game at the same time. So I mean, there's good parts to that.
Oh yeah, obviously.
Obviously the sales have kind of just
dwindled. I mean, there's reasons for that. For one, they didn't make like the biggest launch in a while. To start off with, when the original Wii came out, that was actually pretty big. I remember people talking about it. Everyone wanted it for Christmas. But this is not so much.
Well, we also have to remember, like, a lot of times with launching consoles, first year is pretty bad.
Yeah.
Like, remember Sony, the sales were pretty abysmal for the first year. And it's possible to turn it around later.
It is, but
if they get a good crop of games later on, they can turn it around.
Yeah, I just feel like there's a good way to launch it badly, and they launched badly, and that's not helping the case.
Yeah.
As far as those games, yeah, you're absolutely right. But so far, they've mostly had, like, the big games that you know about have been games that have already been out on the PS3 and Xbox 360. They've just been, like, special edition, like you said, Arkham Asylum, Ninja Gaiden 3, things like that.
And the rest have been kind of Nintendo exclusives. And it's not like they haven't even have like a new big Zelda game yet or something. I don't. And the biggest problem probably is the marketing.
Yeah, and it's not being marketed that well. And you're right; it could turn around. It could get some good games in there. But for right now, the reason why it's not really doing well is because of that lack of games. And they have a lack of games because it's not doing well. It's a vicious thing there. It's a vicious cycle. It keeps them feeding off each other. It's going to do worse and worse if it doesn't get those good games. But it's not going to get those good games unless it does better.
Well, I think like EA has said like they don't have any games in the works for Wii U, and so that means like no. And they have a lot of sports games, and so that means like no. If you're into sports, you can't play Madden or anything like that, or at least for a while. And a lot of third-party developers seem to have like kind of abandoned them for at least for now. And there's nothing really big or juicy that seems to be, I don't know, on the horizons.
Yeah. And I can't blame people for not wanting to get as involved right now. And I mean, why bother? I mean, you said there's the debate on whether it's considered the next generation or not. Technically speaking, yes, it is part of the next generation. But it is just like there's very little to distinguish it between the Wii. I mean, there's obvious things like you pointed out, those differences. But besides that, it's like a souped up Wii. It's more like kind of an expansion than anything else.
Well, I think I feel like we just spent a whole thing talking about like how processing power and stuff like that doesn't really matter.
While that is true, it's absolutely true. But at the same time, it's like, okay, so what? You're up to PS3 and Xbox 360 level. Well, you weren't like that in the beginning, and even though it didn't really affect things then, right now, when you're coming out with that new system, if you only have a few things that are setting you apart, that might not be the thing to do. Because I feel like, here's the thing, with me, at least why I think part of the reason why it's not doing well is this. Back then, when it first came out, there was nothing like that. Right now, there's no reason for anyone new to really want to get the Wii U because there's no games on it. and there's no one who has a Wii who's really hyper motivated to get a Wii U. It's like there's no, I mean, there's some nice features, but they can't even fully exploit those yet.
Well, there's also yeah, it has some good features, you know, with the tablets and stuff. Like I think again, it also goes back to the marketing. They called it the Wii U.
Yeah, that might have been a mistake.
And people are confused about whether this is a peripheral, whether this is a new system. I think most people don't even know it exists.
That is true. A lot of people don't know.
They had commercials for like a month, but I don't see any anymore.
Yeah, they just stopped. And honestly,
So they're giving up.
yeah. And from time to time, I forget it exists. I won't lie to you. Every now and then I'm like, oh yeah, there's the Wii U.
People have forgotten it exists. I think you can be bad or good, but the worst thing that can happen to you is no one knows you exist.
Yep. It is pretty bad. But, so, yeah, and honestly though, if I'm gonna be so honest, I can't feel sorry for Nintendo. Because even if they lose this war this time around, it's not gonna matter. And I'll tell you why it's not gonna matter. They're gonna continue to be around. They have such a hardcore fan base that even if they get this, they can recover it. I don't think it'll be the end for them like the Dreamcast was the end for Sega.
Well,
or the hardware.
Well, the DS is
still kicking ass.
Is kicking phenomenal.
Dominating the portable market, even
Portable.
though like Sony with their PSP has gotten better, it can't really top that.
No.
Because I mean, Nintendo's have been doing portables for a long time.
Well, yeah, remember the 3DS or whatever. It started off horrible sales, and they managed to turn around. So that gives them hope for the Wii U.
Sure, because I mean, it had one of those like special features where it didn't seem like it was an outright different console. And then they do have some hard hitting games coming too. I mean, they're gonna have Pokemon X like and Y, and that shit is gonna sell. I mean, you know, it's Pokemon. That is still
in 3D
big.
now.
In 3D. That is going to be huge.
Well, you know they always set the last trump card Pokemon console game.
Yep.
it's like
It's go to. He's like, oh my god, we're failing.
it's
time.
It's time. It's like the Wii U cannot fail. Put a Pokemon game.
Because I mean, they're probably overdue for one anyway. I mean, you know, it takes me back to the Pokemon Stadium days.
I'm telling you, if they put the Pokemon game on a console, everyone would know about the Wii U.
Oh hell yeah, they'd be like, oh, let's get that new Pokemon game.
People would buy it solely for that. But,
Oh yeah, but yeah, you're right. So it's not too late for them. And I mean, honestly, we're just speculating here, but I mean, I think it's possible, very, very possible, that if it doesn't outright lose the war, it'll be a close second. But we're gonna get to that. We're gonna say the big one for last. But I think it's possible that I don't think it's gonna win. Is what I'm getting at, and that was the first one that we found out. And honestly, I don't know about you, but I didn't actually find out about it until a very, very little before it came out.
Yeah, I knew about it and everything, but so PS4.
Yes,
first?
let's talk about that. Like, it was like what in February, like right around time that Metal Gear Rising came out. They talked about it, but they didn't show anything.
Well, they showed the controller.
Okay, they showed it, but it's like
They didn't show the box. I think people.
Show.
I think the overall reaction was,
Yeah,
people weren't like, "This is awesome," but they
How
weren't like
could they say
outright
it's
hostile.
awesome?
But
Yeah.
they weren't outright hostile.
Well, I think it's because people still want to give Sony a chance. I mean, for the most part, they've done pretty well. It's just like I think again that PS3 launch was horrendous, and they did a lot during that generation to just fuck over people. But they've been trying to get better with it. Is that it's going on? Like I mean, there's even a thing like a while back, like maybe a year or so ago, like with the PSN, and it got hacked, and yeah, they could have just said, okay, fuck you, but instead they like had like 2 games that you could download, and one of them, there were several games that you could download, but you got to pick 2. And one of the ones I picked was Infamous, and that was pretty damn awesome, getting that for free. And hell, I don't even use online like that, so that was nice. And they tried to do some other things that paid off. But what about this generation? Have you been hearing any of the recent stuff? I have.
About PS4.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's been rumors about DRM. I think Sony has said they wouldn't require it, but I think they've been vague about it. There hasn't been as many rumors about like locking games and different stuff around Sony, but I think they won't require it, but they'll but publishers it will individually decide whether they want it.
And I don't see why they would change it now, though, because I mean they've allowed some people to game like before, but I'm hoping that they might.
I mean,
consider,
like a publisher might like say we want always online, and Sony will probably let them.
I hope not. I mean, that's just gonna.
I think Sony's gonna say like we're not doing it, and they're gonna just back away
because they were like, let that be on them.
Yeah. Whereas Microsoft, I think, is going to take maybe a more proactive approach.
Oh, we will get to that too.
So yeah, I don't think Sony will like you'll like. Your
They're not trying to be
games.
so forceful.
Yeah. You'll be able to sell your used games and stuff, but I think there was a feature for like on Wii actually that Wii U that lets you resell your digital games, which I think is a good idea.
That's pretty cool.
If you download digitally, but anyway,
see, that's something that they probably should be talking about more.
But yeah, with the PS4, one of also the big things that they've been talking about they've been trying to give more details here and there. So I know we talked about like the different technology that they're using, you know, like more focus on like cheaper technology. One of the also big things, and they know what they're doing here, I feel, is that they're focusing more on the hardcore gamer for this generation, or so it seems. That's what they're marketing it as. They're talking about, you know, they're trying to make it more of a gamer console. And on top of that, the price tag that they're thinking right now is $350. It's opposed to Xbox One's $400 that they're thinking about. We'll get in that later too.
Well, it's also gonna. I think another big thing is they're switching over to the x86 architecture away from what they had previously for the PS3, which is kind of a weird thing that was different from the other consoles and PC. But this is the same type of like architecture you see in like your PC, and I think Xbox 360 is going to be having it too.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be easier to port between consoles.
Yeah, the developers going to love that.
So you're going to be like games that would maybe have been just like PS3 exclusive just because of like it's so hard, or just an Xbox exclusive just because it's so hard. You'll see them across multiple consoles, which I think is better for everyone.
Oh yeah, I think everyone was there.
So you'll have
win.
Hopefully you have more choice, and I guess they'll have some kind of. They've mentioned a PlayStation 4 Eye, because remember they used to have that Eye toy thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess that's going to be their version of Kinect.
They already have a version of Kinect, though. Like, I mean, they didn't talk about it too much.
Well, they have that motion controller thing with the blue light bulb, PlayStation Move.
Yeah.
But I guess they're trying
that was their version, but you think they're going to up it with the Eye.
I'm not sure if the Eye is in every one, though. Because, like, Kinect 2 will be included with every Xbox. But I'm not sure if PlayStation 4 will.
Hey, I mean, I know it's not like a big deal to a lot of people, but I find it interesting that they're actually like, they're doing the DualShock 4.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like the DualShock 3 didn't come out till a little bit later.
Yeah, I know.
And I think that was also a mistake just because so many people were used to that. And it's like, you included it later. You could have done that earlier, and they had initially intended to. But I guess they didn't feel like it was a big deal. I mean, after a while, you do get used to it, but I think it's good that they're starting with that.
Yeah, I think the controllers can have better stuff. Like, I think you can have a jack where you can put in a headset, or it has like a microphone and stuff in it, so you can talk to it.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure what the touchscreen is. Deal with that.
We'll see, but I don't know.
How would you use that in gaming? I'm not sure.
Sort of find a way, but it's like I think a little bit more difficult on that than it would be a portable system like DS or something, you know?
Yeah.
But so far, if I had to pick a spot for PS4, the way they're looking, the way they're marketing things, they're doing a much better job than when they did with PS3. And again, we're just speculating. I think that may take the role just because no one really knows about Wii U, and we'll get to Xbox One. I have some shit to say about that. But what do you have to say? What else about PS4?
Well, also the PlayStation 4 does come with the camera, so that they may want to include the camera more in games like the Kinect or something more, or so you can control your game system or something. I don't know what they're doing with that.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not super excited about the idea, but things change. That's just part of the market.
Well, also there's that big thing they're talking about, the share button, where you can record and share your video game things. Because you know there's that big thing of there's the rise of the Let's Plays on YouTube and different video gaming sites, and those are really popular. They get millions of views and all that sorts of stuff, and people are actually making careers out of that stuff,
which is insane. But more power to them.
Yeah. If you can make money playing video games,
yeah, that'd be awesome. I wish.
But yeah, I think they want to kind of like with the rise of Twitter and your social network, they're trying to emphasize that kind of thing, and I'm not into that stuff.
Me neither. Because we've established, I like my single player experience. I really do. But, I mean, a lot of people do like the multiplayer stuff, though.
But,
they like to share. They like to do this. They like to do that. So, more power to that.
But, like, the thing is, like, I'm not sure, like, people want the real world coming into collision with their gaming world. Like,
they might not want it, but that's what they're trying to push.
Like, I'm not sure people, like, you may want to play a game as, like, Axe Murderer 23 online, but you don't want your grandmother on Facebook seeing you, like, oh, Axe Murderer 25 just got 50 kills in Call of Duty or something.
But, that's probably because she had Axe Murderer, and she's like, really? How original? God.
No, I see your point.
But I know they have the option of turning that off and
They
stuff,
do.
but it seems like they're pushing that a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, because when you think of it, right, the more presence they have in the real world, the bigger that this gets. So, of course, they're going to be pushing it. But, I mean, so far, the little bit that I do know about the PS4, it sounds interesting. I want to see more about it, and I'm hoping they don't fuck it up. Because, like, with PS3, again, they fucked up the launch, but they did better. And so, we probably won't talk about PC gaming that much, but, like, in the current generation that's still going on, like you said, their presence is definitely felt. It's really powerful. And I agreed with your statement earlier. Like, I think for the next generation, they will be in that stuff. And then if there's a generation after that, yeah, they might, like, take stuff,
Well, a lot of people are saying this might be the last generation.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. If there is a next one. But, so they might win overall, like, this whole war, PC versus console, just because everyone's leaning more towards PC and the way they design things. But let's talk did you have anything more to say about PS4? I mean, what are your expectations about that? What do you think overall?
I think, I'm not really into the PS4. I mean, they haven't shown me anything that's really. I mean, I kind of like the idea of they're going back to more. It's basically just a piece, basically a PC designed for gaming. But I mean, like, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure there's anything that's standing out for me. It's like, oh, that's innovative or anything. It's more like this is an upgrade on everything we did before. You know what I'm saying? It's like the controller's basically the same. It's an upgrade on what we did before. The system's basically the same. It's an upgrade on its fast processing. All this better memory, better everything. But there's nothing that's like, wow, I've never seen anything like that before.
I will agree. It is kind of like that because they haven't said a lot about it. But
I think I'm alright with that kind of.
Yeah, because I feel like with Sony, it's kind of like Metal Gear Solid for me. See, with the Metal Gear series, right, they've always had the basics and then they built on that and they made it something. And with Sony, I feel like it's like that too. I mean, the fact that we're up to PS4 speaks a lot about that because that's how it's been. It's been like that system that's still growing. They had the same controller since like day one pretty much. And they've been just building on it and they've been building on better technology, more, expansive stuff. And I think that's a good thing. And from the little bit that I hear, I'm only excited about it because I feel like they're kind of fucking up less in their way they're marketing it.
Well, it seems like they're playing it very safe, and basically all the PS4 is just a better PS3. That's if you wanted to describe it, it's just a better PS3. There's nothing like new where you're like, oh, where if you were to describe a Wii U to someone who just had a Wii, you're like,
well, these are different things.
Well, you have a tablet thing, you got all this.
So it's like pretty much you have the Wii with a different controller. That's what that shit is.
Sorry, I gotta stop bashing Nintendo there for a second.
Yeah, John, you're horrible.
Make Nintendo do more stuff with their products.
Yeah. So you're right. They're playing it safe, and I'm like you on that. I kind of like it because last time they had a chance to play it safe and they fucked it up and it backfired, and I feel like they felt that. And if you notice, they tried to get more, back to the way they were. Like, they offered backwards compatibility, albeit you had to download it, and they allowed you to have more, like, space, like memory card sort of things. They offered a lot of the old games that you had. I mean, they did a lot to try to, not fuck up what they did, but you could also argue that they knew that sort of thing was going to happen, and that's just, like, more money in the bank for them. But, anyway, I think it is good that they are playing it safe, and I hope that they deliver on what they're saying right now. And You know what we're gonna have to talk about next.
Okay, Xbox One.
Oh dear God! Let's start with the name. Like seriously, I say that because whereas PS4, their marketing this is going to be a gaming console. I mean, obviously they're going to be doing the other stuff, but it's like we're going to focus more on that. Well, Xbox One, even the name is focused not on that.
I think Sony, like their marketing department, they've actually put out stuff where they're making fun of Xbox, and they're like PS4 is primarily a gaming console, while Xbox is doing all this other shit. And they're trying to take advantage of that.
Can you blame them? I mean, at this point, I feel like Microsoft is just making it easy for them. I mean, damn, but we'll get into that too.
Well, people are making fun of them, like, it's called Xbox One because you're taking 359 steps backwards.
Okay, that's actually pretty funny. But damn, that is busted too. But yeah, I mean, the name alone, it speaks volumes. I mean, you wouldn't think that in some cases, but I mean, we know why it's called Xbox One, and I mean, if someone is listening to this right now, they probably know too. It's because it's supposed to be an all-in-one sort of thing, but it's like, really, that's what you're kind of already doing anyway. Did you need to say it?
Well, it's also very confusing because I think the casual person might think it's the first Xbox.
Yeah,
they might, or like the rehash of the first Xbox, kind of like how PlayStation did the PS1.
Yeah.
They actually had that exact kind of name.
So it's like it's like you're kind of, I feel like you're being confusing whether intentionally or not. Some people could easily mistake that, and that's gonna hurt.
But my thing is, like, Xbox, all the names put out there for the possible name of it, Xbox Infinity for me was the best.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it has kind of the same concept as one, where it's like one and all in one. Instead of it's like, you have an infinite amount of options.
Yeah, and it certainly sounded better than 720, because it's like, you just did two circles. What they fucking do? But
yeah, right? the logos are, I can imagine cool logos with Xbox Infinity.
Right? Because, I mean, the Infinity symbol is pretty cool symbol. So. Yeah. It's like they had a chance to make that cool. Like, I mean, it's kind of like how we could have been called the Revolution. I mean, that was the name of the project, but I felt like that could have been the name of the system. And it would have actually made a lot of sense because, it was revolutionary at the time. But yeah, so from a technological standpoint, I feel like it is going to be on par with the PS4, and I think that's going to actually like hurt it as opposed to help it, because if they're even in terms of technology, then it's going to be about the system and what they can bring to the table. And oh my god, some of the things that Microsoft is doing is
Well, okay. Can we talk about what's good first?
Okay, fair enough.
Okay,
let's start with that.
Okay, number one, the Kinect 2. It's good that they're improving the Kinect, and hopefully it won't suck as much as it used to, and it's more accurate, more reactive. I read stuff like it'll be able to measure like people's heartbeats from using its infrared cameras and stuff, and so that's gonna make that exercise stuff better. So like our mother likes to play with the Wii for exercise and stuff. Sure. So if she has like a Kinect game, you can measure heartbeats. So you're like, oh, do more exercise, that kind of thing. And I also, again, I like it for just like engineering perspective. Better sensor, more awesome robots, and all that kind of stuff.
I'm sure a lot of people have fun with that too.
And I think they're actually going to come out for a separate one just for like PCs and stuff.
Well, why the hell not?
Yeah, so that'd be cool. It's got they're finally switching over to Blu-ray.
Well, yeah, I mean it won the war there.
Yeah, because
HDD, like it didn't.
There's an alternate universe somewhere where HD DVDs are all the rage,
and we're talking about God, that Blu-ray that lost. Silly PS3, silly Sony.
I'm not sure how I feel like. Okay, in the presentation they went on and on about like how you could change channels with your voice, and you would run your cable through the Xbox and a bunch of other stuff. I mean, like, I kind of like the idea of like, hey, go to Sci-Fi Channel. I like that where I don't do a remote, because I think
just sounds cool too.
Because the remote, I feel like it's the one piece of technology in your room that hasn't really changed, and it's horrible.
Yeah,
and I personally think we're going towards tablets or voice control or something like that in the future. But I think they're trying to take that next step, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, better graphics, sure, better process. But that's the same. So yeah, I've tried to be positive there.
Now I'm going to do my part. Are you done being positive? Because I want to be a little negative.
Okay, you can be negative.
Are you sure? You don't have anything else good to say? Because I mean, no, seriously, if you can, more power to it. Because we should give it credit. for the things that it's doing right?
Oh, the people are saying good things about the new controller.
Okay.
They're saying it's better, nice fit, good grip. Because a lot of people like to use the Xbox 360 controller for PC gaming because they like the controller, and it's good for your shooting games and different
Better
stuff.
than the first one. The first one's like,
And apparently, and a lot of people are liking who have played with the thing. It doesn't have like DualShock, but it's got like feedback in the triggers, and so you can program feedback, and so you can make it more accurate, like you're shooting a gun.
Man, that is pretty cool.
So you get the rumble in the triggers, and so it's gonna make your like first person shooters and stuff more immersive. Or I see even third person where you fire a gun, you're getting the feedback, kind of like you get like just recool and stuff. So that sounds cool and stuff. So the controller may actually be a highlight of the system.
Fair enough. I mean, there's always going to be good and bad things with all these.
All right, now's your turn
my
to
turn.
lay
I'm going to dig into it because damn, it has it coming. Okay, it does. It really does. Okay, and again, I give credit where credit is due, and I'm going to criticize when I have to. Now, in the last generation, you know that I do like my PlayStations. I do. I have PlayStation 1, I have PlayStation 2, I have PlayStation 3, and in fact, I enjoy my PS3 a lot. But when I initially got it, God, there was just, we talked about it, we kind of beat that to death, but, it's just like, God, there was a lot of things that I hated that they did, and again, they got better. Yeah. They fucked it up. There was no reason why they had to lose that. They had a slight edge from a technological standpoint. They had a large base, and with PS2 winning the last, war, there is no reason why it had to go down like that. Meanwhile, I give credit, surprisingly, to Microsoft here. Because with 360, it was fairly safe. It improved upon the last system. It was pretty friendly. And yeah, it's dickish to have Xbox Live, but they had it in the last generation. So no one was surprised by it.
Yeah.
I mean, you either liked it or you just dealt with the payment or you didn't do it at all. As simple as that.
Yeah.
But they played it safe. They did it right. They didn't change a lot from their presentation when they said they were going to launch. And they launched right after the Wii. They didn't launch last. And they kind of forced Sony's hand and made them kind of come out that same year because it's like, oh, well, we can't have those two systems out and, launching last. But, so, I didn't like Sony's launch, but I am a bigger Sony fan than Microsoft.
Well, there's also the Red Ring of Death. You remember that? I know you didn't get 360, but...
Oh, yeah.
A lot of them died, but that was...
Yeah.
But people got over that pretty quick.
They did. I mean, it's a small thing, I feel. But, yeah, so I feel like they played it safe, and they've secured their spot as number 2. And they had a chance to compete with PS4. I mean, because at this point, I don't think the Wii U is a threat at all. So I pretty much feel like Nintendo kind of threw in the towel there. But I feel like with a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about, Xbox is kind of saying, hey, Wii U, I know it was pretty easy for you to be last place. I'm going to give you a chance to be second place. And Sony, I'm just going to make it easy for you. You fucked up last time. Let us fuck up.
All right.
And let's talk about why that is. For one, I think we talked about the title, and I don't think that was the most brilliant move. But there's also this whole thing where that they did the whole testing about you have to be online all the time, and that was received very, very poorly. So they decided they're not going to do that. But one of the things that they are going to do is they're going to have you check in at least a day, 24 hours for some things. And I don't think that was very smart. And then there's the used game issue. And it's so if you buy a game, right? If you do it on another account or you try to do a used game, you have to pay an additional fee to play that, or your friend is going to have to pay an additional fee to play that. And it's it's your game. You should be able to either sell it or let someone else play it. You shouldn't have to pay to play if you've already paid for the game. And this shit isn't cheap.
Okay, a big thing about all the stuff you're saying is a lot of people at Microsoft have been saying conflicting things.
Okay.
And they're confusing a lot of people.
And it's not helping, yeah.
And it's not helping. Some people have said, it needs to be, it's not that often. Some people have said it's always online. Some people have said it's once every 24 hours. No one is coming out and just saying, it's this.
Well, okay, fair enough. Even if it's not always.
And it's not even it's people, it's executives. Microsoft executives who should know this shit.
They don't. And that's not helping either. But whether it's always a day or even more sparingly, I think the fact that you have to do it at all is obnoxious. And then with a used game, that's going to fuck a lot of people over with that. I mean, people that sell used games aren't going to like it people that buy used games aren't going to like it. It's like, if you pay for that game, why would you want to pay that fee? It's already bad enough that they do things like Xbox Live, but you get used to that. But this is new. There's no reason for them to do that. It's like, why do that additional fee?
Okay, well, the thing is, like, if I can't sell my used game, then the question is, like, are you going to make the original game cheaper?
No, they're not, and you know they're not.
That's what they're going to claim, because we're making more money because less used games are being sold. We can afford to lower the price.
And it's like,
they're not going to do that.
And one of the other things that they're trying to cling on to is they didn't actually say yet what the fee is, but it's like, there's a fee.
I think some people have even claimed it's like MSRP, which is like the original price.
That would be horrible. That would be really horrible. Hope not.
So I mean, if people whatever the price they're selling it at the time. So like, if they're selling it for $40, it'd be like $40.
That'd be bad. That'd be horrible. I mean, I would have thought that it'd be like $5 or something, which I would think is just bad anyway.
They probably lower. There's probably gonna be something like $5 from there.
But it still would be obnoxious though, because like, why?
I think. Well, like I said this before, like a lot of this, I think they're testing the waters just to see how much shit they can get away with without people rioting in the streets.
And the thing is, at least I think they're gonna actually get away with a lot, even though a lot of people are pissed down. I mean, I think they're gonna do not horrible at first, and if they keep on doing what they're doing, it might suffer.
It's like, remember I talked about like how all the crap people get SimCity? People still bought the game.
Yeah. I mean, there's some pretty hardcore devoted people out there.
So I mean, it's like we're talking about like how they're doing all this bullshit, but people are still gonna buy the.
Oh yeah, no doubt. But it's just like, it's irritating. But I think that will hurt it though. I mean, I think obviously it's gonna make a shit ton of money. People are still gonna make games for it. People are still gonna buy games for it. But I think that Sony might have the edge because they're trying to not do as much shit.
Okay, my thing is like, I think the majority of people in this country are not like knowledgeable gaming people.
Sure.
Most people buying this, they're probably going to be buying Xbox Ones this coming holidays, are going to be parents.
Yep.
Now, are the parents aware of like DRM and always online and all these legal details and shit?
I'm guessing not.
No, they're gonna be like, it's a new Xbox. Johnny wants the new Xbox. Let's buy the new Xbox. They're not gonna know all this bullshit. They don't care about buying used games and all this stuff.
No, and most of them don't know that much about it. And then here's the thing: what you just mentioned. What happens when their kid goes to school and they hang out with their friends and they trade games? Sometimes this happens. I've let some people hold my game and they let me hold theirs. What happens when they get home and they log that in and it's like, wait, shit, I gotta pay? They're not gonna like that.
It's gonna be so complicated.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't just exchange games. I need to go online, what?
It's like, that's shitty. Bullshit? That is really shitty.
It's like,
and that's one of the biggest turnoffs. But yeah.
It's like, we spent so much time trying to make things so easy to use, just so you can go like, I can go online and just do this real quick and convenient. And now we're making things harder than they used to be. You should be able to exchange games digitally. You should be able to, but now you can't even just hand the guy the game. You have to do all this online and sign up bullshit and pay fees.
Yeah. And
they're making it harder.
And even if it doesn't seem significant at first, it's going to hurt used game people, like used game companies. It's going to hurt the consumer, and yeah, they're still going to make something, even if they take a hit, and they know it. They have enough money that they don't have to give a shit about that. But it's like, why test the waters like that? It's horrible. And I think that if they weren't implementing some of these new things, that the race would primarily be between PS4 and Xbox One, leaving the Wii U in the dust. And I think it'd be very, very difficult to declare a winner.
Well, I think another big thing is the Kinect 2. You need the Kinect for the system to work.
Yeah.
I mean, it comes with it, but still, like, you need the Kinect on for the system to work, and that's just ridiculous to me. I think there's also a lot of privacy issues. Like, what if I don't want to connect it? What if I don't want a camera in my living room all the time? What if someone figures out a way to hack these cameras?
You know they will.
I mean, people have figured out ways to hack hack the cameras on your computer.
Yeah, so it's like begging for it.
So
I feel like one of the biggest things here is they're making a lot of things mandatory, they're taking a lot of choice out of the player's hands, out of the consumer.
Yeah.
And they're, like, you brought up the whole, what about the casual gamer? What about the parent buying something for their child? They're not going to know this, and they know that they're not going to know this. Unless you're tuned into the industry, you're probably not going to know it too well.
They're going to see the cool commercial where the person's talking to the Kinect, like, Kinect, turn on your TV, and, switch to the Sci-Fi channel, and you say, it's the future, I need to buy that.
Yeah, and, they'll be having someone, and they'll probably be looking cool, and be like, yeah, change to the Sci-Fi channel. And they'll have all the stuff, and people will think it's cool, and they'll want to buy it, and they won't know about all this shit. And it's like,
I just find it interesting. Like, the reaction to PlayStation was meh. The reaction to Xbox was just outright hostility. Just by
it's
by the
interesting.
online forums and stuff.
Because we talked about earlier. You talking about reactions, the worst thing you could have is boring. At least with the PS4, you're interested. You're not super interested in where it is now, but you have that meh reaction because you're like, okay, they're playing it safe. Okay, I kind of want to see more, but not super excited.
It's like, I went to E3.
Yeah,
see what they got.
And with, like you said, with Xbox One, hostile reaction. With Wii U, it's like, Wii what?
There's a Wii U.
Yeah, when did that happen? So I think that's just sad for them. But it's like, I think in this case, having the bad reaction is not the best way to go, but it is getting people talking about it. We're talking about it right now. There will be opportunity for it to change, but I think it'll probably get worse as opposed to better.
Well, I'd like to talk about E3 for a quick.
Okay.
But Nintendo's actually doing something different for E3 this year.
What might that be?
They won't. You know how they have the big conference where the guy gets up on the stage usually and stuff. Nintendo's not doing that this year.
Yeah.
They'll still be there. They still have the games and stuff. But what they're also doing is they're going to have the games at select Best Buy stores throughout the country. So you can play the games that are going to be at E3 at Best Buy stores.
Before you mentioned that last part, I was thinking that's not the best idea. They could probably use some people marketing up there. But with that last part, it suddenly changes. You know? I think that's a good idea.
It's like they're trying to democratize E3.
Yeah.
So they won't have the big speech and everything, but they'll still have the games and stuff. They'll still have some presentation. It won't be
really, that should be the important part.
Yeah.
Because instead of just talking about it, which everyone's gonna do, they give you that chance to test drive it first. Yeah. We're talking about it more.
And another big thing Nintendo's been doing is they have these things called Nintendo Directs, where they have presentations every month or so or something like that, where they have Nintendo Direct to release the Pokemon XY and announce it and stuff, and so those have been pretty popular. Where people are watching stuff in release, so that's a good bit of marketing they've been doing. So that's one good thing Nintendo's been doing. I think the E3 idea is interesting. I don't understand why they can't do both, but why they can't do the big presentation and do the
because that'd probably be better. I mean, you cover all your bases, but this is going to be interesting. And I know earlier you said you wanted to talk a little bit about how E3 has changed over the years. Let's do that. Or did you have much to say about that?
Oh, I actually didn't say that, but
I thought you did. You wanted to say something about E3?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to presentations like Apple, where every year Apple does this is our big reveal for the iPhone 8, or this is the big reveal for the new iPad, and now you saw that usually the new Xbox would have been revealed at E3. The new PlayStation 4 would have been revealed at E3. Yeah, but instead they had their own kind of Apple major press conference where they invited all the tech people to their place. And they had their own controlled presentation in their own environment, separate from the craziness of E3. And a lot of people are trying to get away from E3. It's still the biggest event in the gaming calendar, but
it's not like it used to be.
It's not what it used to be.
I know. Still would like to go though.
Yeah.
I'm not that lucky though, right? But yeah. So
where do you think gaming's going from here? What do you expect after this generation, or what changes do you expect to happen during the next generation?
I think a bunch of bad shit will happen this generation that will spark the next generation to be better. And I think we have at least another generation with consoles, but just barely struggling on, because it's at a certain point you can improve graphics. that well, and I think it will become more about, like you said, the whole PC gaming. Like even if it's not going to be direct, we're already seeing like a lot of those systems being more like generalized computers. So there's going to be a lot more focus on that probably, and it's going to be even more focus than there is now on the peripheral sort of stuff. Like one of the things that we didn't talk about, but we had talked about before, is like the products like the Oculus Rift and the omnidirectional treadmill.
Yeah, those are cool.
Yeah, so I mean, there'll probably be more and more things like that, more sophisticated devices that give you like a more interactive experience, and it's gonna be about that. It's gonna be about having a more interactive experience, that the better gameplay, because we're gonna reach that peak with graphics real soon if we're not already there. So I think it's gonna. This one, I think it's gonna be a mess, but I think PS4 is going to take it. But after that, who knows what they're gonna what the fuck they're gonna do? What can they do for a system after that? Like, I feel like one of the major things about this new generation is it's so forced. I feel like it wasn't like the last generation where, they were leaps and bounds beyond the other one. I feel like it'll be slight. Like, it's so forced because we're expecting it. It's been like 6 or 7 years for some of these systems to come out with something new. And for some of these companies to come out with something new, and it's like they have to have these people have these jobs, and so they come out with this stuff, and they know they're going to make money anyway, even though it's not really that significant of a change.
Yeah, I kind of laugh. Like a lot of people are making fun of the Call of Duty presentation, where the guy goes like, and we program the fish so that if you go near them, they move away.
Oh, that is so cool.
But I think right now we're seeing the switch, like the casual gaming. I think a big reason the Wii U lost a lot of its audience is like the casual gaming thing that's going to tablets and phones. And
yeah, and less about the console, because the console probably should be more about hardcore gaming than casual.
Yeah, I mean like now the iPad. I think KOTOR is coming to the iPad. It got released on the iPad.
Wow.
Because remember, Moore's law. Processors get better every year.
Times have changed.
So
that's cool though.
I mean, you look at the rise of companies that made like Angry Birds and stuff like that. A lot of money's flowing to like iPhones and stuff.
You can develop things better, and with all that money coming their way.
Yeah, and I think I personally think this is the last generation for PlayStation and Microsoft. Nintendo may come out with another console if this fails. I think portable consoles. Yeah, I think. I'm not sure about portable consoles. It's just so weird. Because I'm not sure they can survive the iPads and iPhones and stuff.
Yeah, because why bother getting that if you could do it on your phone? You got that level of convenience.
Yeah. So yeah, I expect a Pokemon game released on a smartphone in like 5 years.
Well, I mean, maybe a new one, but I believe there's some old ones out there already on
some
games.
I'm not sure if they've released the old Pokemon. But yeah, a lot like Final Fantasy has been released on smartphone games.
Yeah.
But I guess the big thing, I think the PlayStation and Microsoft, you have to remember, like, this last console, how long did it last? Like 8 years? 7?
No, 7, yeah.
7 years.
For both of them.
7 years.
No, 6. My bad.
6 years. I think.
Because with the Wii, it was also 6 years, because it came out in 2006 and then 2012, and this was 2007 and 2013. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think this one is going to be like 8 years. So that's going to be like 2020. And I think it's a big reason why people don't need to buy new computers every year like they used to. And it's because like the power is so good that there's no program out there that's worth it to upgrade it.
Yeah.
To upgrade to the next one every few years anymore. And so this one's going to be like 8 years, which tells me this is probably the last console. Because I think where we're going to go towards is just... You notice they're going back to more like a PC. Well, people are just gonna. It's just gonna be like PCs in the future. The game developers are gonna cut out the middlemen of Sony and Microsoft, and they're just gonna release the games themselves through digital platforms, and you'll just download it straight to your PC in your living room. And your PC will be just a general purpose PC that does everything. Manages, you can play Hulu and Netflix, you can stream and download movies, and you can play your video games on there. There's nothing stopping us from doing that technology. There's no technology stopping us from doing that. You will be able to run your cable through the computer. I think people are gonna I think the licensing stuff's going to hurt it. They're going to be like, why are we going through Microsoft and Sony? What do they have to offer us that regular computers don't?
Yeah, after a while.
So I think the PC is going to take over the living room. It's the future, and I think if you're looking at this lasting 8 to 10 years, that's going to be 2020s. Microsoft and Sony are just going to be left in the dust.
Yeah, you're gonna go out fighting, man. If that's the case.
And so
if it does end up like that,
the future's going to be a PC. Buy whatever you want, download your game on your computer. I mean, Microsoft obviously has a foothold in the PC market because of Microsoft operating system, where Sony doesn't. So, if anyone's going to survive the console war, it's going to be Microsoft.
Well, I mean, Sony, they have a lot with the hardware stuff too.
Well, they have their computers.
They have computers, TVs, things like that.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm saying like the console war. It's won by. It's going to be. So therefore, I'm not actually predicting the winner of the next. It may be Linux or whatever. It's going to be. But I think if any of them are going to survive the console wars, it has to be Microsoft then. Not in terms of hardware, but at least software.
Noted. Because after this time, ooh, damn.
So, yeah, that's what I have to say.
Fair enough.
Anything else?
It's just gonna be an interesting ride, but I will say this: I'm in no rush to buy any new system. But then again, I've never been like that. I prefer to get things when they're cheaper. But if I was gonna pick one, it probably would be PS4. But I'm enjoying my PS3 currently so much that why bother? And one of the big games that I look forward to that they bring out on a PS4 would be Metal Gear Solid 5, but they're bringing that out on PS3 as well, so fuck it. But yeah, if I was going to try, it'd definitely be PS4.
Yeah, well, E3's coming in like June 11th, I think, or something. So, for all we know, we may see some big reveals that completely 180 our opinions on certain stuff.
We should definitely see it. It's certainly a possibility. I mean, it's very early. And, the talks.
So yeah, things change. You thought PlayStation 3 might be a failure. I didn't.
I didn't think it.
People thought it might be a failure, but it changed things around.
Yeah, but thinking it was a failure might not have been the best idea. I mean, it's like, come on, it's Sony.
So we can't predict the future.
We can't. All we can do is speculate. But
I can, but still.
Yeah, because you're totally psychic, right? But yeah, so
I'm like Cassandra, never mind.
Oh God. But it's gonna be interesting, and each the big three is going about it very, very differently. And PCs are still around, still being big, and I mean, it is possible that they might overtake the consoles one day. But it's going to be interesting to see.
Inevitability.
Either way, it's going to be interesting to see because they're not going to go out without fighting.
All right.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's about it as far as the evolution of gaming.
I'm Cameron.
And I'm Jordan.
And this was Crash the Mood.
Indeed.